As the clock struck midnight, a young babysitter's heart raced with every creak of the old house. Little did she know that the family's past held a dark secret, ready to terrify her to the core. Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself against the eerie silence that enveloped the house. She had been babysitting for the Johnson family for a few months now, but tonight was different. Mr. Johnson had warned her about strange occurrences during the night, but she brushed them off as silly stories. The children were already asleep, their bedroom doors slightly ajar, allowing dim light to seep through the hallway. Emily settled down on the couch, flicking through a book to distract herself from the unsettling atmosphere. But no matter how engrossed she became in the story, an unshakable feeling of being watched lingered. Suddenly, a soft whisper broke the silence, barely audible. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she strained to listen. She couldn't make out the words, but they sounded desperate, filled with an otherworldly dread. Panic started to consume her as the whispers grew louder, echoing through the hallways. As Emily mustered her courage and stood up, the whispers stopped abruptly, leaving a chilling silence in their wake. The air felt heavy, and she struggled to catch her breath. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone, deciding to call Mr. Johnson, but it slipped from her grasp, falling to the floor with a resounding thud. The noise seemed to awaken something sinister. The bedroom doors swung open violently, revealing pitch-black voids. Emily's heart pounded against her chest as she felt a cold breeze rush past her. Shadows danced on the walls, elongating and contorting into terrifying shapes. Unable to move, Emily watched in horror as a figure emerged from the darkness, its twisted face barely visible. The entity whispered, its voice a cacophony of tormented souls. "You should have listened," it hissed, before lunging towards her. Emily was never seen again. Story 2. The Haunting Lullaby. Sarah's first night as a babysitter took an unexpected turn when a lullaby sung by an unseen presence transformed into a chilling melody, signaling the beginning of a nightmarish ordeal she would never forget. Sarah nervously fidgeted with the hem of her dress as she stood at the doorstep of the Smith residence. It was her first babysitting job, and she desperately wanted to make a good impression. Mr. and Mrs. Smith assured her that their daughter, Lily, was a sweet and well-behaved child. After dinner, Sarah tucked Lily into bed, reading her a bedtime story to calm her before sleep. As Sarah softly sang a lullaby, a shiver ran down her spine. The room suddenly grew colder, and the air became thick with an unsettling presence. Sarah's voice wavered as she continued to sing, her eyes darting around the room. The lullaby took an eerie turn when a voice, not Sarah's own, joined in. The words twisted and distorted, turning the comforting melody into a sinister chorus. Fear gripped Sarah's heart as she realized that the voice didn't belong to Lily or anyone else in the house. Trembling, Sarah stood up and backed away from the bed. The room plunged into darkness, and she fumbled for the light switch, but it failed to respond. Panic surged through her veins as the haunting lullaby grew louder, its source remaining unseen in the shadows. Sarah's heart raced as she frantically searched for an escape route. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon her, and a sense of malevolence hung in the air. With each haunting note of the lullaby, her fear intensified, urging her to find a way to protect herself. In a moment of desperation, Sarah remembered the small, antique music box sitting on the dresser. It had caught her attention earlier with its intricate design and delicate melody. She reached for it, hoping that it held some answers or a means to silence the haunting lullaby. As Sarah wound up the music box, the room filled with an eerie silence. The haunting melody ceased, and for a moment she believed she had succeeded in banishing the malevolent presence. But just as relief washed over her, a chilling realization dawned. The music box, now silent, began to emit a soft, mocking laughter. Sarah's blood turned to ice as the laughter grew louder, echoing throughout the room. It was no longer the innocent sound of a child's joy. It had transformed into a deranged and malicious cackle. The walls of the room seemed to close in, suffocating Sarah with their sinister presence. Shadows danced and writhed, taking on grotesque forms that twisted her perception of reality. The atmosphere grew suffocating, as if the air itself had turned poisonous. Suddenly, the music box snapped shut with a violent force. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she realized she was not alone. A figure emerged from the darkness, draped in tattered garments, its eyes glowing with a malevolent gleam. It was a spectral being, a twisted incarnation of nightmares. The ghostly entity floated towards Sarah, its unearthly laughter echoing through the room. "You thought you could escape," it taunted, its voice a blend of cruel amusement and ancient sorrow. "But the lullaby will forever haunt your dreams." As the entity lunged towards her, Sarah let out a piercing scream, her voice joining the symphony of horror within the room. The walls cracked, and the world around her shattered into darkness. In the aftermath, all that remained was silence, a silence more haunting than any melody or laughter. Sarah was gone, consumed by the relentless grip of the malevolent presence. The haunted lullaby continued to play, echoing through the empty room, a chilling reminder of the babysitter who dared to face the unknown. Story 3: The Silent Playmate. When Amy discovered an antique doll in the attic of the house she was babysitting in, she had no idea that its eerie silence was merely a prelude to the horrifying secret it held within. Amy glanced around the dimly lit attic, shivering as the dust particles danced in the faint rays of sunlight streaming through a cracked window. As she rummaged through old boxes, her gaze landed on an antique doll sitting on a worn-out rocking chair. Its glassy eyes seemed to follow her, unsettling her to the core. Curiosity getting the better of her, Amy reached out and took the doll in her hands. It was exquisitely crafted with porcelain skin and a delicate dress. But as she held it, a heavy silence fell upon the room, an eerie stillness that drowned out even the sound of her own breath. Amy felt a sense of unease creep over her. The doll's lifeless eyes seemed to bore into her soul, as if silently beckoning her to uncover its secrets. With a shudder, she placed the doll back on the rocking chair, determined to forget the unsettling encounter. However, as night descended, the house became enveloped in an unsettling atmosphere. Amy began to hear faint whispers, almost imperceptible. The whispers grew louder, and their origin became clear. It was the doll. Frozen with terror, Amy watched as the doll rocked back and forth on the chair, its wooden frame creaking in rhythm with the haunting whispers. The doll's mouth remained firmly shut, yet the words cut through the air like a chilling wind. The whispers revealed a tale of tragedy, a lonely child, neglected and forgotten by the world, finding solace in the company of the doll. But the innocent playmate had a sinister side, feeding off the child's loneliness and despair until it consumed her completely. Now, trapped within the doll's lifeless form, the vengeful spirit sought a new vessel. Amy's heart pounded in her chest as she realized the doll's intentions. She frantically searched for a way to end the haunting, to break the cycle of sorrow and malevolence. But the whispers persisted, growing louder and more insistent, filling her mind with dark thoughts. In a desperate act of courage, Amy snatched the doll from the rocking chair and made her way to the attic's small window. With trembling hands, she flung open the window and held the doll out into the night, ready to rid herself of the malevolent presence once and for all. But as the doll left her grasp, time seemed to slow down. Amy watched in horror as the doll's porcelain face twisted into a malevolent grin. In a flash of supernatural speed, the doll's arm shot out, grabbing Amy's wrist with an iron grip. Pain shot through her body as the doll's icy touch seared her skin. "No one can escape me," the doll hissed, its voice a haunting echo of a lost soul. Amy's scream pierced the night as the doll's grip tightened, its fingers digging into her flesh. She fought with every ounce of strength she had left, desperately trying to break free from its clutches. But the doll's supernatural strength was overwhelming, overpowering her with ease. With a final bone-chilling cackle, the doll pulled Amy towards itself, drawing her closer to its cursed existence. In a horrifying twist, her body began to shrink and contort, her limbs merging with the doll's fragile frame. Her cries for help turned into tiny, helpless whimpers as she became a permanent prisoner within the doll's haunting facade. The attic fell silent once more, the doll now wearing a satisfied smile upon its lifeless face. Its mission accomplished, it resumed its place on the rocking chair, waiting patiently for its next unsuspecting victim. Downstairs, the parents returned home, unaware of the sinister events that had unfolded in the attic. As they entered the house, they felt a chilling breeze brush against their skin, sending a shiver down their spines. Something felt off, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it. As they climbed the stairs, their footsteps faltered upon reaching the attic door. A foreboding sense of dread hung in the air, urging them to turn back. But curiosity got the better of them, and they pushed open the door. Their eyes widened in terror as they took in the scene before them. The rocking chair swayed gently, the doll perched upon it, its glassy eyes fixed on the doorway. It seemed to emanate an aura of malevolence, a darkness that tainted the very air within the room. As they approached, they noticed the whispers, the faint cries for help emanating from the doll. Their hearts filled with anguish and remorse for the unsuspecting babysitter who had fallen victim to its curse. They knew they had to put an end to the doll's reign of terror. With trembling hands, they carefully picked up the doll, determined to break its hold over their lives. But as soon as they touched it, the doll's presence grew stronger. Its whispers became more menacing, its grip on their sanity tightening with each passing moment. A sudden realization struck them. The doll was not only after the children it had tormented, but it craved the souls of anyone who dared to intervene. The parents' worst fears were confirmed as their bodies began to change, their limbs fusing with the doll's porcelain form. Their voices were silenced, replaced by the haunting echoes of their anguish. In the end, the doll stood alone in the attic, surrounded by the lifeless husks of those who had attempted to defy it. Its malevolent gaze roamed the room, searching for its next playmate, its hunger for souls insatiable.